The toughest speaking engagement I ever had was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I will never forget it as long as I live. The guy that hired me to speak, I'll always remember him. He said this. It would be like an event like this, and I'm out there, and I'm enjoying the people and signing some books and having a good day. Guy walks right up to me and says, I need you, and I need you bad. I said, you are? He said, I own a construction company in Chattanooga, Tennessee. You will speak. You're going to speak at my next meeting. I said, and when is that? He said, July. I said, I'm completely booked. He said, I'll pay anything. I said, I'll have an opening. He said, that's what I like about you. You're funny. He said, we had a speaker here last year, Armani suit, Gucci shoes, Rolex watch, perfect hair, perfect kids. He was perfect. My guys hated him. He said, they're going to like you. I said, how do you know that? He said, you screwed half your life up. My men can relate to you. I'll always remember, by the way, labeling is very disabling. I thought I'll never hear from him. 3 days later, he signed a faxed back a program agreement. He put his corporate American Express card down. You're going to love this one. And he tell him he can spend up to $2,500 on airfare, ... because he's going to need to relax for my event. That concerned me a little bit. It's only when I got the client questionnaire did I begin to get real concerned. The 2-page questionnaire to tell me a little bit about the company and the client. He had wrote this at the top of the very first page. I'm not filling out this crap. I guess that's where the customer's always right. I was a nervous wreck. He said that only about 1/6 of his entire team would be there, and they would be all men. I called him up. I said, are you out of your mind? I said, you don't have any women that work in your company? He said, I got a lot of women. They're all positive. They don't need you. He said, but the group you're going to be in front of about 300 guys. He said, I want you to stir them up. He said, I want you to reignite a passion and talk about that focus I heard you talk about in Georgia. I said, absolutely. I said, I'll be there. Flying down, I took 4. Not 1, not 2, 4 people with me. You're going to love this one. My personal assistant at the time, her name was Marcia. I said, you excited? She said, I just want to know why we're going. She said, we're not going to sell that much product. We're not selling it. I go, you're not here to sell product. I said, you're here for my protection. I said, there's going to be over 300 negative, angry men sitting in a room waiting for me. I said, you're going to loosen them up. That morning, classroom setting, right? We had these name cards. And I said, get their names real big, and whatever you do, don't let them get to you. Remember, leave your goats in the room. Don't let them get to you. Marcia goes, would you go up and just play with your goat? Do whatever. She said, we're going to be fine. I come back down 30 minutes later, first thing Marcia said, don't let them get to you. I said, what happened? She said, I don't think they're using their real names. I said, how do you know that? She said, so far there's 5 here. Fred, Wilma, Bam Bam, Dino, and Barney. I said, what'd you write the Flintstones for? She said, when a guy's 6'8", 285 pounds wearing jeans and boots says he's Wilma, I write Wilma. Meanwhile, the guy that hired me shows up. He said, are you ready? I'm like, I'm a nervous wreck. He said, by the way, we're not going to start till Brian gets here. I said, who's Brian? He said, it's the first employee I ever hired. All my foremen report to him, and he said, he has lost his focus. He said, I'm going to tell you something. 6 years ago in this company, we enjoyed the ride. All of a sudden, it hit me again, those 3 words. He said, we no longer enjoy the ride. He said, people are just going left and right. He said, we've lost our focus. And he said, Brian lost his passion. He's a good boy, but he's lost it. He said, I need you to check it and reignite it. He said, and don't let him intimidate you. I said, I'll be fine. I said, is that him? He said, yeah. Guy come walking down about 6'6", 205 pounds. I saw pecs. He looked like he jumped off a Marlboro ad. He had a styrofoam cup. Spit and snuff. Owner looked at me, looked at him and said, Brian, this is our speaker. He went, pfft. Walked in. I'm like, the 4 people with me went, we'll be at breakfast. I go, oh, sure. Then I got introduced. And I appreciate the sponsorship. I appreciate my introduction. Because when I got introduced that day, here's what you would have heard. All right, knock it off. I know it's Saturday, I know it's your day off, and I really don't care, but he said, one piece of house cleaning. Don't you dare do to this year's speaker what you did to that guy last year. By lunchtime, the first guy back in the room was Brian. He walked right towards me. Now, I'm 6 foot, he's about 6'7", and he's Tony Lamas ostrich cowboy boots. He goes, Speaker Man. That's when it was born. Ladies and gentlemen, you know Spider-Man and you know Batman. Speaker Man. He said, you got something I can write with? I backed up a PowerPoint presentation. He filled in every blank. All of a sudden, I got to the end of the program and I said, how many of you guys are married? See, I was going to make a point. Decide what's important and never take it for granted. I knew exactly what I was about to say. I said, how many of you guys are married? Hands went up, and then Brian went like this. When he went like that, I thought, that's it. I said, how many years have you been married, Brian? He said, 19. I said, you got any children? He said, 3 boys. I got emotional. I said, don't do what I did. I said, I took something for granted. I said, even the simple cup of coffee, the smell of coffee in the morning that I used to smell, I said, I took that for granted, and you don't know what you have until you don't have it. I said, I became a single parent. I said, Brian, refocus your attention. I said, tonight when you go home, here's what I want you to do. I want you to find your wife of 19 years. I want you to kiss her on the cheek and tell her you love her. But when you go to bed tonight, I want you to smell the sheets. The sheets will be symbolic of everything in your life that you have taken for granted and not thanked someone for. For me, it's coffee. For me, it's a lot of things. I said, so Brian, tonight when you go home, she comes to bed, give her a kiss in the cheek and tell her how much you appreciate the fact those sheets and pillowcases are fresh and clean, and whatever else it is you've never thanked her for. I looked at him, and just like here, it went from laughter to you could have heard a pin drop when I said, are you going to do it? He said, you're bizarre. I said, bizarre or not, it's going to work. I'm leaving a hotel in downtown Chattanooga, and I heard, ho! I'm like, gee, here he comes. The 4 people with me go, you need this? I go, no, get to the car. If I'm not out in 10 minutes, call the police. He walked right up to me, and he went, Speaker Man. He said, I'm going to make you a deal. I said, you're going to spare my life? He said, when I first heard you, he said, we got a speaker here every year. He said, I can't stand it. He said, they use these little acronym things and talk about goals and everything. He said, you know what? He said, you're real. And he said, I'm going to tell you something else. He said, thanks for the wake-up call. I said, what do you mean? He said, if I ever woke up and my wife, Lisa, wasn't laying in bed beside me, I'd tell God not to wake me up the next day. He said, thanks for the wake-up call. I said, you're welcome. I said, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going home. I'm going to find her, kiss her, and say, I love you. I said, you may want to work on that on the way home. I said, what about the sheets? He said, I ain't going to do no sheet sniffing. 4 years ago, I was presented at Christmas by my employees a letter that I had filed away. They took it out of the file. They framed it and matted it and put it behind glass. A letter that's dated July the 20th, 1999. The author of the letter is Brian. The gentleman that went like this, now has written me a letter, and in the second paragraph he said, thank you for reigniting my passion and redefining my focus. In the 4th paragraph, with tears coming down my face, I would begin to laugh when he said, and I even did that sheet thing. He left his home phone number, his cell phone number. He left his pager number. I called him at the house. I said, Brian here. He said, yep. He said, who's this? I said, Steve Gilliland. He said, who? I said, the speaker from Chattanooga. He said, he said, you got any more of them tips? I said, tips. He said, I like stuffed pork chops, white gravy, green beans, mashed potatoes, coleslaw, butter, carrots, homemade biscuits, and sausage gravy. He said, in 19 years of marriage, I've had all that food on the same day 3 times. Since you spoke, I've had it all again. He said, she even gave me a massage. I said, what happened? He said, I got home and she was in the kitchen. He said, I walked up to her and I kissed her on the cheek. And I said, I love you. I said, what'd she say? You've been drinking. He said, I told her again, and when I went to bed that night, I had no intention of doing that sheet thing. When I did that, he said, I'm laying there in bed thinking what you said about them sheets. And then the next thing I know, she comes to bed, pulls up the bedspread, pulls up the sheets, and they're laying on my face. And he said, that was it. I said, what? He goes, I could smell it. I go, smell what? He goes, the foo-foo, whatever she sprinkles on them. I go, well, here's a revelation. There is no foo-foo. It's called Downy. He said, whatever it is, man, I had a mini speaker man on my shoulder going, tell her, tell her, tell her, tell her, tell her, tell her. He said, I leaned over and I just didn't kiss her and thank her for sheets. I thanked her for that coffee that's on at 5 every morning that she makes. I thanked her for a lot of things I've taken for granted. But most of all, I made a commitment that I'd never take it for granted again. I thanked her for 3 boys who have been good students and never been in trouble that I've never helped with homework. He said, I just wanted to say thanks. That's why I wrote you the letter. I said, you're welcome. He said, the morning I wrote the letter, he said, I went by the laundry room. That's what prompted me to write it. She was in the laundry room firing sheets and pillowcases and everything else in that washing machine, just crying. I looked at her and I said, Lisa, are you okay? She said, Brian, these are happy tears. She said, Brian, for 19 years of our marriage, I've done the laundry because I thought I had to. She said, today's the very first day I've done it because I want to. You want to know when you've arrived? When people follow you because they want to, not because they have to. Never lose your passion. Live in the moment and never lose your focus. And just so you leave on a funny note, he then said to me, speaker man, she grabbed a big old blue jug of something, poured it in the lid and looked at me and said, big boy, you get a second cap full today. Thank you so much and God bless. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.